Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Ideas. I am Madhu and my co host is Abhinav Raji. We are lifelong learners and wanted to unearth the secret sauce of successful people across the globe and package it up to the community. We firmly believe each episode will inspire you to find your passion and follow your dreams. In the first episode, we have the co founder of two startups, CEO of Distech and Geom.ai. Growing up being dyslexic and dysgraphic, he was passionate about creating efficient tools that can be used for early detection of the learning disability. He was a self taught entrepreneur and an AI enthusiast who has worked on diverse AI projects and startups in France, UK, and Australia. His Distech has already gained support from the likes of Amazon and Dear Dyslexic. He has already appeared in 9 News and numerous publications already. His only vision is to help 1 million kids. That's right, 1 million kids with dyslexia in 2020. Without further ado, let's welcome Hugo Richard. Hi, Hugo. It's a pleasure to welcome you today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's good to chat with you.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for your time, mate. There's a beautiful word in Japanese called ikigai. Iki means life. Gai means the realization of hopes and expectations. So it's basically a meeting point of that which you are good at, that which you love, that which the world needs, and that which you can be paid for. You're so young and you have found your ikigai and achieved so much in your life. We are absolutely thrilled to have you in our show. And in the next 30 minutes, we will love to have your personal stories and the thoughts and ideas in your mind which led to actions that made the idea come to fruition. Let's jump into it.
So, Hugo, I would like to start the first question. I'd like to know from your personal dyslexic story, how and when was this identified and your thoughts behind this?
Sure. Look, I'm one of the luckiest dyslexic. I think I've been diagnosed with dyslexia when I don't remember exactly if it's 11 or 12. So I grew up in France, and I did my first half of life in France. I went to school in France. So when I got diagnosed, after that, it's just nothing happened really. So I just went back to school, and it was just back to normal. Um, it's just that we knew that I needed to see a professional to actually learn how to read and write. So we did that for a while. Um, and then after that, I was just living normally. I was not dyslexic in my mind, and like the world around me was not labeling me as dyslexic. So it's sort of I just grew up as me without thinking that dyslexia may be causing a few problem at school and in my learning process. So it's weird, like you could have people who are diagnosed, and after that they are labeled, and then they're reminded every day and at school and throughout their life that they have dyslexia, and that dyslexia is causing XYZ problem or difficulties. So for me, that wasn't the case. It was just I got diagnosed. I went and see a speech pathologist for 2 years to learn how to read and write, and that's it. Drop out of school, and 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 then way after that, when I started sort of educating myself about dyslexia, then I realized, oh, that explained a lot of things about me. So yeah, that's basically my dyslexia journey, I would say.
What are the challenges of identifying dyslexia?
Yeah, well, look, it seems that if you simplify the problem of dyslexia, it seems that there's two problems. The first one is knowing that it's dyslexia, so assessing and diagnosing the disorder. And obviously, the second one is when then how do you support those child or adult. Um, so yeah, look, at the moment, if you need to obtain proper support, you'll have to go through a proper diagnosis of dyslexia. And what that means is that you have to take an appointment with an educational psychologist, and you're probably going to wait maybe 6 months, a year before having a spot, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, which is something that you need, because they are providing a fair amount of information after the diagnosis, which can then be used to understand where and how to support that child. But the thing is that it's quite expensive, and if it's not dyslexia, then you spend all that time and all that money for maybe something that's not right. So the idea was to maybe we could use technology to facilitate sort of screening, not having a proper diagnosis because it's quite hard to replicate for a machine, but at least having something that can tell you, which is reliable, whether or not it is dyslexia. It could be like if a child has problem reading, it could be plenty of different things. It could be vision impairment. It could even be hearing impairment, and all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could have something that tell you that it is dyslexia, then your sort of half the battle is there. And so the assessment process is quite long, and the reason for that is because it's basic economic, really. It's like you have a massive amount of people, adult and children, with dyslexia, and you have a very tiny amount of educational psychologists. So what that means is that you have a very large demand for children being assessed. And what that means is that, psychologist is only one person, you can only see one child at the time. You can't have like a 10 child screening session, diagnosing session. So obviously those things takes a lot of time, cost a large amount of money. So that's sort of the problem that we try to tackle. Like, is there a way we can actually reduce the time that it takes, make something that's very accessible, that's very affordable, but as well as being very reliable?
Excellent, Hugo. Thank you so much. I think listening to your story has been fantastic. Hugo, technology has profoundly impacted the current human era, and we can't deny that. And we are all privileged to live in this time. Being an AI enthusiast myself, right, I can see what AI has done so far to the community and what it is capable of doing. With AI, ML, NLP being the buzzwords, more than 50 to 60% of the population talks about it daily. So I just wanted to dive deep and understand about two things. One, walk us through on how did you end up your interest in AI first, and then what was your eureka moment, which you felt that AI can actually help the problem of dyslexia and the birth of Dystech?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, that's crazy. I didn't even know that 50 to 60% of the people were talking about AI daily. That's quite impressive, to be honest. Look, I think my interest in specifically in AI and that sort of scientific world came when I've made a very first project that I've started back in, I think it was 2015, so 5 years ago. Was a project called Geom, and the idea was, let's try and make 3D tour of property, right? And then you can browse that 3D property on your browser using WebGL and all that sort of thing. And that was a very manual job. So we managed to have a few clients, and we were making a 3D tour manually. And at some point with my co-founder, we've started to ask ourselves, well, is there a way we can automate that? Because obviously it's very work intensive. And I think it was sort of the start where you had where CNN and computer vision started to sort of exploding in terms of that sort of thing. So we sort of shifted our goal into, well, can we actually train an algorithm to learn to recognize a 2D floor plan and to dynamically generate a 3D tour and all that sort of thing. And so I think this is where I really started to understand how like this technology can really and is and will be like really changing the world and society, and how we interact with technology, and how fast we progress in science, and how basically every aspect of society, really, if you think about it. So yeah, so it was about 5 years ago that I really sort of make the big jump into, let's explore that further and let's see what we can do with this. Um, so my eureka moment in regards to Distech. So what happened with Distech is kind of it's a sort of bizarre story. So one day, Matthew, which is one of the co-founder of the company, made a joke about having a computer helping kids with dyslexia, right? And so he made the joke, and then I was like, well, I took it seriously. I said, well, let's do something about this, right? So we've organized a meeting, sit down and just write on the board, say, how can we make things happen? Like, how can we approach that? And so that was about like 4 years ago. And so we had this sort of project going on. It was like a rough idea. We didn't really know how to make it work. We didn't know nothing about dyslexia. And so it was sort of like when you're a kid and you have this like great idea and you just don't really know where to start, and sort of that kind of thing. So that was Distech at the time. And so, but we were convinced though that AI would be able to play a role in helping children in education. That's definitely we were convinced of that. And then so then what happened is that we had Jim and Jai joining the team, and we sort of started to educate ourselves about dyslexia, like what's going on with the current sort of learning disorder. How is education reacting to it? Who are doing things, like who are people working in the field, like speech pathologists and things like that. And so slowly but surely we quickly understand that, well, we probably can't do anything yet for supporting children because it's very complex. Like if you want to teach a kid to learn how to read, it's very complex. There's many different layers of skills that the child needs to have.
Yeah.
And that is best done by a human, by a professional who know what they're doing. But on the assessment side, when you look at dyslexia, you could, from an external point of view, like from a data scientist point of view, from a, people who know, someone who know nothing about dyslexia, you could say, well, dyslexia is a learning disorder which impacts the ability of reading. And very basically, well, can we collect audio recording of children with and without dyslexia, and can we just train an algorithm to recognize the difference? And if we can, then that's a screening.
That's right.
So that's how it started, really. And
I quite like the way you chunked it up and also understood the current maturity level of AI in its current state today, which is absolutely important. That means we are hitting the quick wins and then also waiting for technology to develop when we are trying to be more strategic. That's a wonderful approach. Congratulations on that, Hugo. I just wanted to dwell deep on some of the two takeaways for the audience here. One, what would you recommend for people who want to get their feet wet on AI? And where do they start? It seems to be an ocean.
Yeah. Well, it really depends. Look, I'm not so I'm not technical in AI. Like I know some of the algorithm that are part of machine learning, and I know some of the algorithm that are part of NLP, but I'm not actually coding the function and everything. That we've got two professors on the team that do that. But I do understand, like sort of the concept and how it works, like how do we need to prepare data and all that sort of thing. And so obviously everything that I've learned on AI is on YouTube. And one person that really influenced that knowledge to me was Andrew Ng.
Mm.
And he's got free courses online. He's a great orator, so he's really good at if you're not technical, watch what that guy is doing, and you don't have to understand the mathematics behind. He would be able to explain to you and sort of give you the core concept of what that thing is. When you have that, if you want to dive deep into technical, there's plenty of courses online that you can follow and start looking at different type of algorithms and things like that. But I would say just go on YouTube and look, as there's plenty of video out there that can introduce you to what AI is, what machine learning is, what's a neural network, how does it work, all that sort of thing.
So just for the audience, we are talking about Andrew Ng. If you start to Google him, I'm sure you'll see tons of courses from him, and that's what Hugo is currently recommending us. Thank you, Hugo, on that.
Yeah.
The other aspect, which is totally interesting, is your Ikigai moment again, where you wanted to be an entrepreneur. You used the dyslexia as a platform, and also your passion on AI to build on top of it. So being a self-taught entrepreneur yourself, what were your initial challenges when you started this journey, mathematics around starting a business, and what are the current challenges and steps that you have overcome to achieve a 10x growth?
Look, the first biggest challenges that I encountered was on the very first startup that I've made, Geon, so in 2015. The big mistake I've made was to not tell everyone, and I was scared that they would take the idea, and I was like, this is my baby, we should not tell anyone, blah blah blah. And what happened when you do that? Well, what happened to me is that you think you have the correct idea, but you don't. And when you talk to people about it, you get different feedback and different perspective. And with those feedback and perspective, you then sort of shape. It's like, your idea is like a rough diamond, and you need people to shape it towards something that, that will work, that increase your chance of building something that people want. So I think one of the biggest mistake that I've made and challenge that I've encountered was not talking to people and not just opening myself and say, hey, we're doing this is how we do it. And I quickly realized that no one really care about you. Until you start making money, no one really care. People with idea, it's very easy to find. So don't be for me, I think, not being scared of just go and ask. Or actually, if you even want to go a step further, just go and say that you have it, right? Even if you don't, and see how people see what people tell you, and so yeah, that was one of the biggest challenge, and mentally it was quite hard as well. It was non-stop work, and you sort of have just you and you making the decision. You have no one else externally to sort of give you some fresh eyes on what you're doing. And I think my ratio of response when I start selling the 3D tool was 800 to 1. So I was sending 800 email, 800 phone call to receive one response. So yeah, I think talking to people, getting people perspective on what you're doing and feedback is very, very good to move forward.
How did you motivate yourself in this journey? I mean, when you're talking about sending out 800 emails, what was your thought process? Should I quit? Should I not quit? Should pursue? What motivated you?
Look, it's a roller coaster. It's like 1 month, it's amazing. You've made so much progress. You think you're going to change the world. And then you're like, I'm going to quit. Nothing's working. No one's replying to me. So it's like you need sort of endurance to sort of don't if you give up too early, you may not see where you could have been successful. But I think what's hard is to make a difference between being persistent and being obsessed. So, you need to be persistent, but at some point you need to be humble and really look at things objectively and say, well, I think I'm being obsessed and it's not going to work. So I either need to pivot and do something very different, or I just need to just let go and, and cry for a good day or two and say, this was not my baby. This is not going to work. Let's do something else. And it could, like, it's hard to do.
Yeah. So did you have any mentors to support you or coaches to help you out to achieve the 10x growth? And what is your thinking around people who are starting the journey of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I had no one, but I must admit that I was watching some video on YouTube. I was just learning a lot on YouTube about, startup, fundraising, marketing, SaaS, all that sort of thing. And one guy, he's a French guy, who made a big difference in how I sort of approached entrepreneurship and startup, was a guy called Oussama Ammar. So he's one co-founder of something called The Family in France, and he's very influential in Europe, in the startup world. And he influenced me a lot. Like, when I was watching his video, he's doing like a 1-hour talk video on, landing page, but it's just like the way of how he's, like, his idea and how he sort of, so he's not my mentor, because I think I've messaged him once or twice and we just had like 2 or 3 messages, but he was sort of very influential for me in how I think and how I approach startup and decision making and sort of vision and everything that I do, really.
Nice. Thank you so much on that.
No worries.
So Hugo, you have worked in France, you worked in UK, and then you migrated to Australia. Any specific challenges that you faced working in Australia that you would like to share with the audience?
There's actually much less challenges to work in Australia than to work in the UK and in France. So France, work landscape is very toxic. There's a very large amount of legislation. It's very complicated. The UK is extremely competitive and highly crowded country. With there's a lot of bright people out there, and personally, I don't have a degree whatsoever. So you have to really prove yourself. So it's very hard. People who succeed without degree or things like that in the UK, to me, you really need to not give up and keep going. And Australia has been fantastic. I mean, look, it's a very young country. People are amazing. It's very easygoing. It seems that everyone is accessible. It seems to me that it's like the country is sort of open to new things. They talk about AI, they talk about all sorts of different things, and because it's such a young country, then you sort of have all those different opportunities that are opening to everyone. So yeah, I guess Australia has been the less challenging country to work in, to be honest. And like, Australia is home now to me. So,
Hugo, in one of your interview, you said something so inspiring. You have a dream for helping 1 million kids. That's so fantastic. Final question. What message you would like to give to our audience to achieve their ikigai?
Well, the first one is, don't take what I say for granted. Like, your story is yours. Your mistake will be yours, and we're all different. But what I would say is, like, to increase, I think, your chance of success, you need to talk to as many people as you can about what you're doing. And you need to be able to judge, and it's hard, but to judge when you receive very good feedback and when you receive bad feedback, dismiss the bad feedback and really take into account the good feedback. And like, don't be like, don't be scared to change your idea, even if it's your baby. At the end of the day, if you're creating a startup, then you're creating something for the people. You're not creating something for you. So listen, uh, listen to people. Um, that's what I would say. But again, everyone's different. They'll have different sort of path, and but to me, I think talking and getting plenty of different point of view, plenty of different perspective, is good, because it make you see different type of people, how they react into what you're trying to do, and are they positive about it, are they negative about it, are they advising you to do something very specific, or something broad, and that way you sort of get some sort of feedback, and in there it's really easy. I mean, like, you can make a Facebook page for free in one day, and you can just do a bit of Photoshop or Canva with making up a product and see if people sign up to your mailing list on MailChimp, So yeah, just try and talk to people would be my advice.
That's a great
Thanks,
advice.
Kevin.
Talk to the people, and I think that's really good.
It's been
Yeah.
a real pleasure talking to you, buddy, and wishing you all the very best for your future endeavors. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and good to chat to you guys.